Talk to Animals. My name is Shannon Cutts. I'm an animal communicator, Reiki Master practitioner here at animallovelanguages.com. And on my shoulder, for those of you who are watching the YouTube version, is my ever-present feathered sidekick, Soulbird Pearl Cuts. He's ready to do some roosting and preening, and I think that's pretty obvious from his body language. I don't think we need to be animal communicators to figure out he's saying, Mom, lap, Mom, lap, lap, Mom. And here at Let's Talk to Animals, we have one thing on our mind, which is demystifying, de-wooing, if you will, all things animal communication, interspecies communication. What is it? How does it work? How do you know it's happening to you? We are here to talk about animal communication basics and also what I call kind of the more advanced level, which is the animal communication is one piece of it. And then what do we do with the information that we get? And that can mean that the animal needs some assistance from other modalities. And one of those modalities that I'm passionate about and also work with in my own practice is Reiki. So today we've invited Diana Seidl from heartsoulottawa.com. And she tells me it's nice and cool where she is right now, which makes me very jealous here in scorching Houston, Texas. And I'm just so grateful, Diana, that you have agreed to be a part of Let's Talk to Animals. You're a Reiki Grand Master as well as an animal communicator, and intrigued by your story because I really feel like a lot of people are going to be able to relate to what you share. And I feel like both of us, we were kind of grown, if you will, at least on the outside, when we started to feel more open about pursuing our interest in intuitive gifts and energy pathways, yes, different healing modalities. And it's a big passion of mine to open this up. It's not just for folks that shot out of the womb talking to all the let's note, we have plenty of guests like that on Let's Talk to Animals, and I love it, but that didn't necessarily happen to all of us. And that does not mean that it's a barrier to entry. In fact, sometimes the experiences can be more powerful. So welcome. And, we chatted a little bit beforehand. You've been doing this work a long time now, and yet I always invite our guests to take us back to the beginning. I shared just a tidbit of your story, but just to the beginning, like, how did you even know that this was something that was happening or even possible? And, how did this journey unfold for you? Just share your story, if you will.
First of all, Shannon, thanks so much for having me. I'm really happy to be here and excited to talk about all of this. My story. Well, I think it happened, I started sort of as a child being very intuitive, but didn't know that I was intuitive. I didn't understand that when I was hearing things, it was from spirit. I just thought I was crazy. So example, someone would say, guess what I did on the weekend? And I go, oh, you did this, 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 and this. I had no idea that I wasn't supposed to know. I was the standard answer should have been, I don't know, what did you do on the weekend? And instead I told them, and that got them super scared. And that got me scared, thinking, uh-oh, what have I done wrong? So I ended up to be I would say very shy. I went inward. I got very shy and didn't really say too much. I knew things, but didn't say things. And often it sort of started popping out every once in a while. It would sort of come out and people would say, well, how did you know that? And it's like, well, I don't know. I just knew it. So I ended up, high school is really tough to begin with. To be strange and weird is even worse. So I just sort of pushed that down until, gosh, I was married and had 2 kids. It was after my father passed away that I kind of woke up and thought, some interesting things happened to me after he passed away. And I thought, I need to understand more about this. So I sought out some mentors and started going through and asking questions. And I came onto Reiki, and it really resonated with me. And then after that, I had the senior dog, which I think you can see right there.
Yeah, I do. If you're listening, you won't be able to see it, but just describe him for us just a little bit, if you would.
Sure, no problem. She, her name is
I'm
Coco, and she
sorry,
was
her.
a rescue. No problem. She was a rescue that it came into my life, and she was 18 years old. Really good life with us, and she was very much my teacher. So in my healing sessions of Reiki, she would actually come in and sit down, and I didn't know at the time that she was helping. I would always shoo her out of the room, going, "Okay, you can't be in here." But I come to find out that she was actually helping. And as she was getting on in years, she became blind and she became deaf, and she became very isolated. And it was like, well, she can't hear me anymore, because I used to talk to her out loud all the time, and she can't hear me anymore. How can I communicate with her? And I think I was doing it all along. I just wasn't listening to what I was hearing. You think that, oh, is that me? Is that my voice in my head? Am I making this up? Is that actually them? So I sought out an animal communicator, and that's the catalyst that started me on the journey to animal communications. My daughter also has a horse who was having some health issues, and he had to be shipped a couple of hours away, and he didn't. And I wanted to get him to understand that, we weren't shipping away forever. It was for his own good.
Yeah.
And he would be coming back, and I was able to communicate with him while he was away. And that was another thing I wanted to do. So it's like, how can I do this? How can I accomplish this and bring comfort to both my daughter's horse, whose name is Xander, my daughter, Sarah, and my dog, so that her world was so small at the time. She couldn't hear a thing. And she just would look at me and like you wanted to understand. I wanted to understand what she was going through. I also wanted to understand, or be able for her to communicate with me, to let me know that she'd had enough, like it was time. And I didn't want to be the owner that kept the dog around because they couldn't let go.
Yeah.
I wanted to understand, okay, what's the signal? When do you want to go? And when do you feel you've had enough? So that was really why this whole thing all started with animal communications.
Diana, that's amazing. I mean, your heart just shines through as I'm listening to you, because, and the motivation is so pure. And this is what I find when I connect with other practitioners, is that often we do have a soul animal in our life who makes us brave, who really somehow, because I can so relate to how you just shared that you got the suspicion that maybe you were doing it all along, you just didn't realize it. I ran a popular blog called Love in Feathers and Shells for a few years, and wrote a couple books featuring my soul bird Pearl. And I would always have these conversations out loud with him, and I do it all the time. And one day, not long after I received a message in meditation, which is usually when I get messages that I really need to pay attention to. And I heard the words, "You are an animal sensitive and intuitive." And I thought, well, that's fascinating, but I don't know what that means. And
what
then
does that mean?
I started to pay more attention to these ongoing conversations where I was literally talking to Pearl and then answering as if he was talking to me. And it started to occur to me that I'm not answering out of fantasy or fiction. I'm literally receiving information from him that's spilling out of my mouth as my own words. And I'm wondering if there are listeners or viewers who are relating to this, because it feels like a really important topic. Our animals can be so creative in awakening us to our courage and opening our awareness of all of the ways that information can flow in, and really opening us up to what I'm starting to call the bells and whistles of the human organism. There's so many that we didn't get a manual. Like, I got this enormous manual for my car, which I still haven't read, by the way. Unless there's a light on that I don't understand, I certainly don't delve into it.
That's right.
At least I got one,
You have a reference guide, right? There is no reference guide for this.
Exactly. There's no reference guide. And so it's really up to how curious do we want to get?
I think the most I don't know whether it's gratification or satisfaction that I receive is from owners where their animal has crossed over and they're looking for answers as to how is their animal doing? Are they okay? And did I make the right decision? And that's always the owner is like, should I, shouldn't I? Did I keep you here too long? Should I not have? And animals, you know, they're so ever forgiving. I mean, they're okay on the other side. Like they're full of love and light. They know that you did the best that you could with what the tools that you had. They'll give you the signs, and if you're not going to get it, they'll continue to give you the signs until you get it. So yeah, that's what I like about animal communications. They tell you everything.
Yeah.
My daughter had a cat, very, very original name, Kitty. She was little, tiny little thing. She was a barn rescue, and she came into our lives, and she was just so different. And when, I don't know about you, Shannon, when you communicate with animals, but when I communicate with animals, I see them sometimes as humans, human form. So when I would communicate with Kitty, if you can cast your mind back to Greta Garbo and the old Hollywood with big fur and the long cigarette, that was her. She came in with the black mink with the, the white and the long cigarette, and she would walk into the room and she would go, I have people that do things for me. I have people. And that was her attitude. And that's just how she was. And she acted that in everyday life. She actually would head over to our neighbor. She had two homes. She had our home and she had the neighbor's home, which we didn't know about until one day the neighbor told us, said, she comes over here every day. We feed her. She goes up to her daughter's room. She does all this other stuff. So when she came back, when I came back, I looked at her and I said, so what's up with the two families? She goes, I just like to spread the love around. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I laughed so hard. It's like, they have personalities just like us, right? And they have quirks.
They absolutely do.
They have everything that a normal human being has. So,
increasingly, and this started way back in the day when I had left college, left my first job, and had headed off to India to explore the inner landscape, so to speak. And I also did a lot of exploring of the outer landscape, which was very different from the urban metropolitan areas that I had frequented. And after, I lived in a very rural area, and after some time, it became increasingly difficult for me to tell the difference when I was walking down one of the little dirt roads that led to the village, who was the human animal and who was the cow and who was the chicken and who was the dog. I mean, the pathways were most definitely shared, and very amicably for the most part. And I look back now and I feel like that was really my first experience of how similar we are underneath.
Yes.
And it doesn't matter so much what our outer costume is.
No.
And the ways in which we choose to communicate may be a little different, but that's true of the human animal as well. Some of us are very chatty and very talkative. Some of us, when we do speak, it's going to mean something because we're very sparing with our words. And when I love your analogy of Greta Garbo, and because it feels like this is something I've started working on with my animal communication students. If you were to give your animal a human job, if you were to assign them a movie character or a cartoon character, what qualities, even the name that you chose for them, what about that name resonated? And trying to try on for size all of these different aspects of our animal that we don't necessarily put together in our minds as creating this cohesive personality that's every bit as rich and intricate as our own. And that really feels like it relates very much to the types of healing that is needed as well, because animals, non-human animals, can hold the same types of trauma for the same types of reasons. They can end up with stuck emotions. They can I mean, being rehomed, being mistreated, being misunderstood, feeling like the outcast. The story you shared about feeling alone and shy and not sure where your people are. I mean, that's one thing I love to share with, where are your people? It's like, that's one thing I love to share about here on Let's Talk to Animals is if you're kind of wondering, do I fit in anywhere? I didn't feel like I did. I'm in my 5th decade of life until I started communicating with animals. And then I found my people. Like, wait a minute, me makes sense.
Yeah.
You know, did you find, because you came to it later in life too. So how did you start making that progression when you decided you were going to do what I've done and what many of us have done, which is, we hung out a shingle. We decided we were going to go public. We were going to go pro. What was that like for you, even within your family and community? Yeah.
Oh, scary as heck. I was so scared. I had been talking about it for almost 10 years. And I think it was my husband that said, are you going to do this or are you not going to do this? Because you can't do it halfway. You can't, either you do it and you enjoy it, because I know you love to do it, but do it or don't do it. But stop talking about whether you're going to do it or not. You need to make a decision. So, he's right.
How did that feel when he shared that with you? I mean, was it like, did you do it?
You know what?
You made a decision right then and there.
It was like, it was like, why am I not doing it? Why am I so afraid to get out there and say, this is what I do? So it was more, I came from a very religious family. Was that part of it? Absolutely. That was part of it. And what were people going to think? All of that. And it's like, well, if you're going to spend your life worrying about what other people are thinking, you're going to miss out on a lot. And that's what I was doing. And I wanted to share this with everybody. I mean, I wanted to share the gifts that I have had for a long time. And it's okay to be different. And who says that I'm different? I mean, I think there's a lot of people out there that have intuitive gifts that are sitting in the weeds like I did for so long. So don't sit in the weeds. Don't be a weed sitter.
Absolutely. I have a tortoise named Malty. She loves weeds. She'll eat every single one of them. She'll weed your entire garden for you, and there you'll be, this beautiful blossom. So please do take those words to heart, because I was sitting with a friend of mine the other day in a local restaurant, and I haven't done that in, I don't even know, a couple of years now due to COVID. And we were chatting. She had flown in to take care of her elderly parents, so I hadn't seen her in a few years, and we were talking about, growing up, because she's my oldest friend. I've known her since kindergarten, and at one point, I don't remember exactly how it came up, but I looked around the restaurant and I said, I bet if we got up right now and went and talked to everybody in this restaurant and asked them if they've ever felt normal, I don't think we'd find anyone.
No.
And so we're all walking around kind of, wanting to fit in and missing the elephant in the room, which is, we're here, we fit. And I think this is especially prevalent with the human animal today, because we're so often portrayed as the invasive species. We're killing the planet. The animals would be so much happier if we weren't here. We need exactly what you were sharing, earlier. You didn't want to be that dog mom who hung on and made your dog stay well past when it was okay for her to tolerate being embodied, and having that sensitivity and just realizing, we do belong here. We are a part of, but we need to join back into the conversation and activate these intuitive pathways that everyone around us is using. All the other species are using it, and we can dial ourselves back in and just imagine as if these conversations are going on all the time, rather than if they are not.
If you think about way before COVID, when you used to walk into a room, just picture yourself walking into a big, huge hall. There are parts of that hall that you're not going to want to go over to for whatever reason, right? Because it doesn't feel right. So people are doing it every single day. They're going with what they feel like, and they just don't know it. So everybody can be intuitive. It's just like, you just need to stretch that muscle. You just need to practice is what it comes down to, right? And finding a good mentor, find a mentor that resonates with you, and pick their brain. And then when you find another mentor and pick their brain, and just keep going until you find what you're looking for, I guess might be the right way to say it.
Yeah, it's absolutely beautiful way to say it. And I've had many, I'm very passionate about mentoring. And before I launched Animal Love Languages, and one of many past career iterations, I ran an online international mentoring charity that I founded for people recovering from eating disorders. And that's what we did. We provided people who were a little further along the recovery pathway to talk with people who were just entering that path. And it was very rewarding. And I believe in that, because I feel like COVID in particular has pushed us into relationship with ourselves in a way that I feel like many of us were like, no, thank you. I didn't order any of that. Not for me. Thank you. But here it is. And so really what you said about, if we spend the rest of the time that we have here worrying about what other people think, well, first of all, we'll never know. We can always just ask, if it's somebody very close to us and very important to us. And here I love what Brene Brown says in her book, Daring Greatly, about if they're not in the arena with you fighting and doing the brave things and overcoming their own fears, maybe it's not worth asking them what they think. But like, look at your husband. And he finally just came and was like, let me tell you what I think. I think you should do this. It's perfectly fine to ask. Yeah. And sometimes I find that sometimes I work better in opposition. It's like, if I know what you think, maybe I'm going to discover that I strongly disagree with you. You might think I should never do that. And I'll be like, you know what? I don't agree with you. And, or maybe you'll find that you do agree, and then you can get it off your chest. But at the very least, put it on your bucket list, and consider, if you're listening or you're watching today, that there's all kinds of reasons. And the purity of your story, and just wanting to be able to be of service to these beautiful animals in your life, and just being willing to go such an extra mile just to connect with one other being, I'm getting goosebumps, 2 other beings in your life. And look at everything that's blossomed from that. But it didn't start out that way. I would say far from it, given what you shared about your upbringing and your, the early pressures. And I think a lot of people, it's one of the reasons I wanted to have you on the show, is I think a lot of people will really relate to that, and will find your personal brand of brave very inspiring.
Thank you. I actually have a corporate job too, other than this is my passion, but my corporate job pays the bills. And even there, I didn't even realize what I was doing there. I was actually teaching people to be intuitive there. Like, what do you think? What does it feel like? And then it was very much, I was very much in a man's world. So you can imagine how well that went over. Trying to get men to feel, how does it feel? What do you think?
They're like, what do you mean by feel?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, can you unpack that for me? Can we parse that out? No, it's so true.
Yeah, it's true. So and I didn't even realize I was doing it. I did that for 11 years and had no clue that I was doing. I was doing it until I looked back and went, oh my gosh, I've been doing this for years and years and years and years, and just didn't know it. Right?
So interesting. So interesting.
Everybody can do it.
Everybody can do it, and is probably already doing it. And consider that again, you don't have, it's not like you've got to have some kind of, it's so easy to fall into that trap of, go big or go home. And that's another kind of the old school model. It's like, we go big when we get up in the morning, because while we are no longer actively participating in the food chain of life, like all the other animal species out there, we are our own apex predator now. So it's a big deal just to get out of bed. It's an act of faith. It's an act of brave, however you want to relate to that in your own consciousness. And so, whatever you're interested in, whatever you're curious about, that's where the good stuff is. And you don't need a reason beyond your own curiosity. I love what Einstein said. It's either Einstein at one point said, he's got a lot of great quotes, but this is my favorite. Either nothing is a miracle or everything is a miracle. And it's like, let's go find some miracles. Let's spend our day discovering, uncovering miracles right where we are. And then if it's meant to do something, be something. I have a couple of students who that one runs a rescue charity for dogs. And you don't have to be, I still hire other animal. It's like there's no structure. You don't have to put any structure on why. You don't have to even answer that question other than because it's there and I'm curious and I'm interested. Now, Diana, you have a special heart for the younger set. And when you and I first connected, I mentioned that I was hoping you would share a little bit more about how you work with the younger set, and maybe there are parents out there who are listening who are like, I actually, and here's one story that actually sparked my interest in reaching out to you originally. When my dad was just about to start his hospice journey, he was in a rehab facility and there was a nurse who was caring for him. Of course, my proud mother was running all over the room telling everyone that her daughter was an animal communicator, which was awesome. And one of the nurses said, "Oh, my daughter can hear all the animals." And I was just about to say, "Oh, that's amazing." And when she said, "I'm so glad I'm not like her." And you could tell that she didn't understand what was going on, and it was a little scary for her. I was loved that she actually opened up to me so that I could share with her, some things to make it a little less scary. But can you share a little bit about, maybe somebody's listening and they're like, I think my son or daughter, my child is, maybe having some interest in this path or having some experiences that I don't know how to talk to them about, and how you could maybe be a part of that conversation with them.
Yeah, no problem. So I had, I can't remember, I think I was in my corporate office actually, and I mentioned, now this is a big deal for me. I mentioned that I was a Reiki master and I did animal communications and a bit of an intuitive. And there's always a reason. Everything happens for a reason. And this woman said, "Oh my gosh, thank goodness I'm having my daughter, she sees, I know she's not doing well in school. I don't know what's wrong with her. We've seen doctors and they want to put her on medication. I don't think that's the issue." And I said, "Well, what's going on?" Well, she said to me one day, I said, "Come and have breakfast and sit down at the table." And she said, "I can't, Mom, the table's full." And she goes, "What do you mean?" She goes, "Well, there's a whole bunch of people sitting around the table and there's no room for me to sit." Now, thank goodness this woman was very open-minded, and she said, "Well, what do you mean by people?" and all the rest of it. But I've had other parents that said, "I think my kid is crazy, like they're seeing things." And this poor girl, like this, she had this one spirit that decided that it wanted to keep her up at night and play, and she just wasn't getting any sleep. So she was very desperate. She said, "Can you help me?" I said, "No, I'm happy to go and have a conversation and see what's going on." And I find that kids, they're very open. They're very, open. And when you're open, sometimes in the spirit world, it's like, water, they find a crack, they'll come. And in this particular case, the analogy I said to this girl, that she was probably 13, 14 years old, I said, think of it as you've got this open for business sign blinking above your head, and anybody that wants to speak to their loved one walking on the earth is just lined up outside your door saying, "Help me, help me, help me." And she's overwhelmed. And so the question that I always ask at all my young people and young adults is this something that you want to do? Do you want to learn more about it? It's a choice. You don't have to. You can say, "No, I don't want this." What I don't say is, it's probably going to come up in another, 10 years or 5 years. You're not going to be able to get away from it, but it's okay for now. But she just wanted to be a child. She just wanted to be a kid. She wanted to have a good night's sleep. And her response was, "No, I don't want to." And I said, "Okay, So let's figure out a way for you to build a boundary and for you to understand that this, you're not open for business 24 hours a day, and you don't want this. You just want to be a child. So we worked on boundaries. Like, nope.
Brilliant.
And just saying, no, sorry. I'm not interested. I'm not here. You need to go find someone else to talk to, because I'm going to sleep, and not to be afraid of it. And I said to her, it's like, if you are interested in this, if it's something that you want to pursue, and she was obviously a medium or a psychic. I said, if this is something you want to pursue, then you can say, I'm open for business from 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. and that's it. The rest of the time I'm gone. And if you're going to come and talk to me or visit me, I don't want to see, skeletons and scary stuff. I just want to see you as a normal, as like you and I are talking, Sharon. You can ask for anything and they will show up as you want them to, right? So once she heard that, she went, okay. So the next morning when she went down and saw all these people at the table, she said, okay, people, you got to move. I want to sit down and I'm having breakfast. Her grades came up. She was sleeping through the night. And I mean, it was like a light switch went off. It was just amazing to see. Amazing to see. So
it's much needed.
If you have intuitive kids out there, be open to it and listen to them, and then seek out somebody that they can talk to openly about it, who won't think that they're crazy. Because
it is
9 times out of 10, they're probably not crazy. They're probably actually seeing things.
And that, there are so many other options besides just traditional Western medication and, drugs. Many parents are very resistant to it. And I find it interesting that it's coming up more and more at a time when so many different, what feel like very new kinds of boundaries are needed. I mean, I read an article the other day about the need for the younger generations to really consider the boundaries they set online and on their social feeds, and the impact that can have. And this is just a deeper layer of that. And it's the same basic skills applied to ever subtler forms of communication. It really feels like a process of we are awakening, we are uncovering so many different levels of our power. It's either you congregate around the breakfast table and take my seat, and I let you do it every day because I don't understand, because it's not being talked about as much. It's not something that everybody, it's certainly not part of the curriculum. I feel like, the curriculum, and as it is right now, there are so many things that need to be added in that, it just isn't keeping up with the times on some level of all the things that our younger folks are facing. And so, you may even be, I remember when I was in, high school and early college, sneaking out of the house to go to Anorexia Anonymous and Overeater Anonymous support groups. Like, I wasn't going to whatever it was that the rest of my peers were sneaking out of the house to go to. When I was in the library, I was always in the self-help section or the metaphysical section, kind of closeted, reading these books, but not talking about it with anyone else. And so now we have all these pathways. Like, you may be a young person who's intuitive and you're listening to this, and if so, go you, and don't be afraid to reach out for support and for knowledge. That is your birthright. You deserve to know, and you need to, because it will help you to feel confident in being all of who you are and being able to express yourself with all of the gifts that you came fully loaded. Just face it, you're fully loaded, and what can feel like, oh, I'm different, I'm strange now. I love what you said, 10, 15 years, it's going to turn into your superpower. I promise you. By then we'll have a new cliche.
It's going to come back.
But it's certainly, and it's like, And again, it's just another opportunity to make a choice, to just decide. You know, you got this vast menu of options, and what do you want to spend your one wild and precious life doing? I think that's Mary Oliver, but it could be someone else. But Diana, we are at the end of our time. It is such a joy to talk to you. I do not want to get off our podcast today without you giving you a chance to share with folks how they can reach you and how they can work with you, and anything that you would especially like to highlight for the younger set as well. Would love to hear that.
Okay, no problem. The young folks out there, if you are wanting to talk to somebody, reach out. If it's not me, reach out to somebody, and don't be afraid to ask those questions. You'd be surprised how many people have the same gifts as you do. They're just not talking about it. So be brave and get out there. If I had had somebody to talk to a long time ago, would have made life so much easier. Really would have. Yeah. I'm a Grand Reiki Master. I do human Reiki. I do animal Reiki. I do animal communications. My passion is young people and educating them about their gifts. So anybody wants to get in touch with me, happy to do that. My website, heartsoulOttawa.com, or you can reach me by email, admin@heartsoulOttawa.com.
Thank you so much, Diana. Really an honor and a privilege.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Absolutely. And for those of you who are watching and listening today, please do share this episode with someone who, maybe a parent friend of yours who is secretly intuitive, or maybe not so secretly intuitive, or someone who has mentioned that their child just seems to be, a little different, because different can be really, really cool. And please do subscribe, give us 5 stars or 50 stars if that's available in your area. It really does help spread the word. We're kind of a unique show because of the focus on pets and intuition, and really eager to connect with anyone and everyone who has an interest in the kinds of conversations that we're fostering here at Let's Talk to Animals. So we do these podcasts and vlogcasts on YouTube every week. You can head over to animallovelanguages.com/podcast and find all of the previous episodes and lots of other fun free tools to learn more about what we're chatting about today. So value your time so much. Very much appreciate your listening ears and your viewing eyes and joining us today for this conversation, and look forward to seeing you back here next week, same time, same place, for another fresh episode of Let's Talk to Animals. Okay. Bye, Diana. Thank you again for sharing your time.
Thanks so much.
And
take care.
See you next week. Okay. Bye for now.
See you. Bye.